Hello, with the $2.8 billion settlement between the NCAA, Power 4 conferences, and the student athletes, with that looming, well, that's going to be a big-time settlement. It's historic. It should be this coming week. Let's see what happens. But still, does that mean that everything's settled? No, it does not. One of the biggest issues that's looming over this whole settlement agreement hadn't been talked about and it hadn't been settled. And that's whether the student athletes are employees or independent contractors. And we know that independent contractors have no payroll withholdings. You just get all your money at once. And if you're an employee, there's payroll taxes taken out of it, whether it's federal, state, local, Social Security, Medicare taxes, all that good stuff comes out of the paycheck if you're an employee. So that's something that was not discussed with this agreement and this settlement. It was not settled because what's happening at the same time, even though you might not see it and you might not read about it, the NCAA and the Power 4 conferences are going to Congress to lobby to get student athletes to be considered as independent contractors and not employees, and also restrict their unfettered free agency, which meaning the transfer portal, when both of those issues could be solved by just negotiating at the table with the student athletes representatives and get some of this stuff settled. But they're going to Congress because they're seeking what they call an antitrust exemption. There's only been one sports league in the history of our nation to get a full exemption from the antitrust laws, and that's Major League Baseball back in 1922, I think. The NFL and the NBA are not fully exempt from the antitrust laws. And I don't know much about hockey. But if I had to take a guess, they're not fully exempted either. So when you look at the landscape with respect to the sports leagues, the only carve out for each one of the major sports leagues to have a full exemption under the antitrust laws was for television rights and broadcasting rights, dealing with those matters. But as it comes to general business matters, and having a full exemption from the antitrust laws, only Major League Baseball has that. And what does an antitrust law do? It promotes competition among companies. Remember Ma Bell, Pa Bell, they had to break it up because of the monopoly. So they were going in to seek to get things stopped. But also, the antitrust promotes competition. It prevents monopolies from controlling an industry. Does that sound like the NCAA and Power 4 conferences controlling the student athletes? Think about it. But anyway, when you take a look at whether they're an independent contractor or an employee, well, all you need to do is Google the IRS guidelines to see what the difference between an employee and an independent contractor is. You go to your job every day, I suppose. You know what an employee is. And you're not an independent contractor because you don't control anything that goes on at your job. They own the facilities. The NCAA and Power 4 has control over the medical staff, over the sports facilities, whether it be in track, volleyball, swimming, football, basketball. They control all those facilities. The weightlifting facilities, all facilities, gymnastics. They control all of that. So it's kind of hard for me to see that they're not employers and the student athletes not being employees. But that's not addressed in this agreement. I'll tell you what is, though. The attorneys is going to make $775 million approximately and be paid out over 10 years. So they're getting paid. But when a settlement like this occurs, you want the business organization to be tight. And like I said, the NCAA is going to Congress to get something that only one sports league has ever really got, and that's Major League Baseball. And they stand alone. And let's take a look at the semi-college professional league here. What do they have in common with the pro sports leagues? Well, they have employees. All of the sports leagues, pro sports leagues, have employees in collective bargaining and arbitration. There's a reason for that, because they want stability in the workplace. They want their sport to prosper, where everybody makes money and feel that they're getting a piece of the pie or whatever's happening there. So you can't say that you want to have salary caps and roster limits in the college semi-pro league and not have collective bargaining. The student athletes need to be represented. And going to Congress is not going to solve that problem because history is weighing against them. Major League Baseball is the only one, and I'll repeat again, that's got a full exemption. Not even the NFL and the NBA and the National Hockey League get that treatment. So they're subject to those antitrust laws. So I don't know what makes the Power 4 Conference or the NCAA think that they're so special when we know they have a legalized monopoly. So play by the rules, share the pie with the student athletes. That's a big time issue. The student athlete is an employee. And moving on, you have Title IX issues that's not going to be covered by this agreement. There's some inequities there between female athletes and male athletes. It's glaring, and it's not addressed in this settlement. College football playoff revenues, are those going to be shared under the agreement for the players to get paid? We shall see. They're saying under the agreement that they're going to curtail or limit the private booster NEO payments, which is basically recruiting tools to get athletes to the university, which is wrong to do because you don't have even equality in that. How can you have some conferences with $20 million private NEOs and you have another university that can only raise $5 million in NEO collectives? It doesn't make sense. That money needs to be repurposed to the student athletes in the form of payroll services and things that the universities are going to need to pay these athletes. That's what they need to do. Set up the model so that these athletes can have withholdings taken from their checks. And that's what it needs to be. And the private NEO collectives, or the booster NEOs as I talk about, they should be killed. It should be no more in college football, and there should be enforcement if people continue down this line to try to circumvent this new agreement in which the players will take part in profit sharing with the universities. That should be in the form of salaries, but it's not. It's in the form of 1099 income, which is a tragedy. They need to get back to the table and settle that. So there you have the issues, though. Even though you're going to have a big time, humongous settlement, things are still not settled. And parents better wake up, and student athletes better wake up to understand there's a lot of compliance involved with receiving this money. And the business organization is not tight, and it's not right. They are employees, and going to Congress, I don't think Congress should step in. I don't think they should save the NCAA and the Power 4 conferences, because they created this problem by not sharing with the athletes in the first place. And to the grand houses of the world, the people that brought this lawsuit that's going to be a historic settlement, don't sleep and don't rest on your laurels. Get busy, get back and start fighting for the employee status, because we know what comes along with that. You have to withhold federal, state, and local taxes, Medicare taxes, Social Security. They have to match it. You have to be talking about 401k plans. All of this is there. But the pro sports leagues, Major League Baseball, National Football League, National Basketball Association, National Hockey League, they've all addressed these problems, and they have a very smooth running system, even with free agency. The NCAA has to do what is right and do what the other leagues are doing. They're paying their players. They're paying them salaries and wages, and quit trying to disguise it as 1099 income, because it's not going to work. And it's not fair to the players, and it's not fair to have them worried about these business inequities that's going on, putting undue burden on them. But the bottom line is, it's what's right and what's wrong. If you go and Google the guidelines as to an independent contractor versus an employee, you pretty much know that they're employees. And if they want outside endorsement income, outside of the income they're going to get up under this settlement, you can hire what agent, what marketing director you want. Go out and see if you can raise money through national advertising, car dealerships, or whatever you want. But we've got to get this thing of payments, these private payments going to these players and bargaining with third-party, private, artificial, whatever you want to call it. It's got to go. It has no place in college football. Let's get this thing tight, where everybody, it's a league. If you want to be a semi-sports league, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League has shown you how it's done. And this settlement does not solve those issues. It's kicking the can down the road. And it's a tragedy. There you have it. I'm C. Ivan Franklin at YouTube, at B. Frank for Real. One minority voice, one view. You heard it here. But don't think things are settled. Even though you have a settlement, it doesn't mean it's settled. See you.